Ever feel like you're swimming upstream? Like no matter how hard you try, you're just battling against the current all the time.
Yeah, like you're just constantly pushing and pushing.
Yeah, exactly. What if I told you there's a way to kind of go with the flow a little more?
Oh, that sounds nice.
Right. Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today, diving deep into the philosophy of Lao Tzu and really the core principles of Taoism.
All right.
We're going to be looking at Lao Tzu and the teachings of Taoism, and hopefully by the end of this, we'll all be floating downstream a bit more relaxed.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so before we get into the flow, so to speak,
Yeah.
who exactly was this Lao Tzu?
Well, he's considered the father of Taoism. He
Yeah.
was this ancient Chinese philosopher.
Okay.
And legend has it that he wrote the Tao Te Ching, which is like the foundation of Taoism.
So that's like the main text.
Exactly. But you know, the thing about Lao Tzu is his life is like shrouded in mystery.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like some scholars even debate whether he was an actual historical figure or more of a mythical sage.
Wow. So we don't even know if he was a real person.
I mean, it's possible he was, but there's no hard evidence.
Wow. That's kind of a perfect introduction to a philosophy that's all about embracing the unknown, right?
You could say that, yeah? It kind of sets the stage.
All right, so let's get into the heart of it then. What exactly is this Taoism all about?
But at the center of it all is this idea of the Tao.
The Tao.
Yeah, and it's a concept that's kind of tricky to grasp sometimes, but you can think of it as the fundamental principle of the universe, like the underlying force that kind of flows through everything.
Just kind of like the source of everything.
Yeah, it's the origin of everything, but it's also the ultimate goal.
It sounds incredibly vast. I mean, how do we even begin to understand something so profound?
Well, you know, even Lao Tzu said that the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao.
So we can't really put it into words?
Not exactly, but you can try to approach it through like imagery or contemplation, you know, try to feel it out.
Okay.
So imagine a river
Okay.
flowing effortlessly towards the sea. The Tao is kind of like the river's current.
I see.
You can't see it, but you know it's there because it guides everything and shapes the landscape.
So we should be trying to be more like that current.
In a way, yes. It's not about resisting the flow, but more about aligning ourselves with it.
So go with the flow.
Exactly. And that brings us to this other really important concept in Taoism, which is Wu Wei.
Wu Wei.
Yeah, and it's often translated as non-action or effortless action. Basically, it's about working in harmony with the natural order of things.
Okay. I have to admit, when I first heard of Wu Wei, I thought it meant like, just sit on the couch and do nothing.
Haha, yeah, it's definitely not about being passive.
Okay, good.
Think of it more like a sailor. The sailor uses the wind to move their boat instead of just exhausting themselves by rowing against the current.
Ah, so it's about using your energy wisely.
Exactly. It's about recognizing when to act and when to just let go.
So picking your battles.
You could say that. It's finding that sweet spot where effort meets ease.
I like that. Effort meets ease. I feel like I could apply that to so many parts of my life.
Absolutely. And, you know, Lao Tzu believed that a lot of our struggles come from just wanting too much stuff and being disconnected from nature.
Okay, I can see that.
He was really big on living a simple life, you know?
Yeah.
Humility, spontaneity.
So he was kind of like the original minimalist.
I guess you could say that. He believed that real contentment comes from aligning ourselves with the natural rhythm of life.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, especially in today's world where it feels like there are so many demands and distractions. This idea of simplifying and going back to nature seems more relevant than ever.
Yeah, it's definitely a good reminder.
Okay, so we've talked about the Tao and Wu Wei, but what else did Lao Tzu have to say about how we should live our lives?
Well, he had some pretty interesting ideas about how we see the world.
Like what?
Well, he believed that a lot of the concepts that we think of as opposites, you know, like good and bad, big and small, they're actually relative.
Relative.
Yeah, it's all about your perspective.
So like what's good for one person might be bad for another.
Exactly. What one person sees as a failure, another person might see as a huge learning opportunity.
Okay.
And recognizing this can help us deal with challenges in a wiser way, you know, with more compassion. It's a good reminder that our judgments can sometimes cloud our perception of what's really happening.
So we need to be more open-minded.
Exactly.
This is all making me realize how much I get stuck in my own way of seeing things.
It happens to everyone.
And I feel like this ties back to that whole naturalism idea. We talked about that a little earlier.
Yes. And Lao Tzu was a big believer in living in harmony with nature. He saw humanity as a part of the natural world, not separate from it.
It's almost like he was an environmentalist, way before his time.
Yeah,
Like, we hear a lot about sustainability these days, but he seemed to get it on a deeper level.
definitely. And his views on leadership were also very different from what people were used to back then. He thought the best leaders were those who kind of governed with a light touch, like letting people figure things out for themselves instead of trying to control them.
So more like a guide than a dictator.
Exactly, someone who empowers rather than controls.
Oh, that's refreshing.
Especially because that command and control style often leads to resistance and resentment. Lao Tzu's view was that real leadership is about inspiring people to find their own way, not about forcing them to do things a certain way.
I like that a lot. It's amazing how much of what Lao Tzu was saying thousands of years ago still applies to us today.
His work has had a big influence on Chinese culture and beyond. You can see it in art, religion, philosophy, even medicine and martial arts.
Wow.
And there's been a growing interest in his teachings here in the West, too. People are looking for a more balanced way of life. And his ideas really speak to that.
Well, I feel like this deep dive has really opened my eyes. I'm starting to see how embracing even a little bit of Wu Wei could make a big difference in my life.
I think that's a great takeaway. Lao Tzu's message is that real wisdom is about letting go of control and finding that balance between effort and ease. He reminds us that maybe the real journey isn't about forcing change, but about aligning ourselves with that natural flow, the Tao.
Wow, so much to think about. Where in your life could you use a little less force and a little more flow? We'll leave you with that question. Until next time.
फोटो देख शिवरात्रि मंदिरों में आई है वो भी आपकी एडिटर मिले इसका खाली नगर में थी किसी बैग ही ना दीवार
लोग कतरी जोड़ती है
बड़े भाई सिर को गड्ढे खाली बड़े हाल बताओ अपने